Okay, December, where are we? December 2nd, right? Okay, December 2nd. Go ahead and begin the starter if you've not done so already. This is taken directly from yesterday's lesson. Okay, all true false questions here. Okay, look back at your notes. But first one, Hitler won the presidential election in 1932 with 13 million votes. True or false? Answer that question. And then Hitler became the chancellor of the German government in 1933. True or false? Hitler used the burning of the Reichstag to gain greater power in Germany. True or false? And then the Enabling Act of 1933 tried to limit Hitler's power, but it was too late. True or false? Go ahead and answer those questions, please. I will give you a couple minutes.
Lonely riches, stars at night, and the big black sky. And you said to me, if you love me, then say you love me, that you are mine. Hey, come on, darling, stop the hiding, speak your mind. Oh, I loved you, but you left me speechless. Then say if you love me, then say you love me, that you are mine. You left me speechless, You left me Hey, come on, darling. See.
All right, let's keep going here. So go to the next page, please. The next page, which should be the summary page. Okay, so we are, the last two class periods, we talked about the rise of Nazism. That was the focus. Like, how does Hitler gain so much control? Okay, how did that happen? And we went through that and learned all about that and the terrible economy, the Treaty of Versailles, and how that kind of led to everything. And then he just slowly kind of took more and more power until the Enabling Act, which gave him almost ultimate power to do whatever he wanted to do. So let's look at our summary page for today. So now we're going to look at this idea called anti-Semitism. That's our focus today. By the end of class today, you'll be able to describe kind of this idea of anti-Semitism. Understanding the implications of global interactions, you know, as we're getting into conflict and war and global interactions and leading up to World War II, that's our North Carolina Standard Course of Study. At that point, okay, Europe, ideology, impacts, interactions. This is incredibly important today, right? Think of this idea of anti-Semitism and how that impacts the interactions that people have had with Jews. Okay, so that's our focus today. I'm giving you, we'll see how far we get. Okay, so take a look here. We have the starter, which we did, December 2nd starter. Then we're going to complete 52 anti-Semitism 1 out of 3. Okay, that means there are going to be 3 anti-Semitism pages. And then we're going to begin page 53 and then do the ticket out the door, and then your asynchronous work is to complete page 53. So my hope is that we finish 52 completely together during our synchronous time, and then we can begin 53, and then you finish that during your asynchronous time. So hang with me, and we'll see how this works. Okay. All right, everybody look at this map, and it maybe you need to go into your Canvas page as well to this page. Okay, 52 anti-Semitism. Okay, 1 out of 3. Okay, the first out of 3 pages. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at this map as best as you can. All right, and just kind of what is this showing? Okay, there's no key on here, but if you're looking at this, this represents the Jewish population in Europe, okay, prior to World War II, okay, before World War II begins. Where do most of the Jews live? Can you look at that? Can you tell? Put it in the chat. Where do most of the Jews live prior to World War II? Yeah, good. Yeah, Poland, right? There's another one. Find another one. What's the other one with the massive, right, bar graph that represents? So I think what we see here is two different things being represented. We see the overall population represented with the bar graph. So here, if we look, right, yeah, we got the Soviet Union. That's like 3 million? Both of these are about 3 million Jews in Poland and in the Soviet Union. And then if you look at the pie graph, okay, let's look at Poland, for example. Okay, I'll try and zoom in here. I don't know if the quality will diminish or not. Yeah, it's not too, it's a little bit better. Yeah, that's better, that's better. I mean, it's still got some work to do, but all right. So if you look, the pie chart then represents the percentage of the overall population that the Jews were in these countries. So if you look at Poland, they're 10% of the population, okay, 10% of the population. So 3,325,000 Jews, and they represent, that's the greatest, is that the greatest percentage that you see? Oh, besides, right? There's one more. What do you see? Which one has the greatest population of Jews prior to World War II? Or when this was created? You'll see it? It's a little tricky. No, not Romania. That's a good guess, though. Not Romania. Romania, if I'm looking at it right, that's only 4.2%. There's one other country, in fact, it's not even a European country. It's not even a European country. Yeah, land of Israel, right? That's the homeland. That's the promised land, is Israel for the Jews. And so you have 400,000 Jews there, okay, which is the greatest number out of all of these. Oh, besides Germany, it's 525,000. If I look at that. Oh, no. Remember, we got 3 million here and here. But you have 400,000 here. That's 28.6. That's every, 1 out of every 4 people in Israel are Jewish. Okay? All right? What else do y'all see? Any other? Everybody put one other observation. What is one other observation? Take a look. I'll play a little bit of music. I'll give you 30 seconds. I go ahead and put one observation in the chat. What's one other observation you have? Yeah, okay, yeah, for sure. Not a lot of Jews. Yeah, up north, not many. If you look at these countries up here, right, the Scandinavian countries, and then these Eastern European countries here, not many. Yeah. Albania, only 200. Correct. I wonder why. That brings up. I wonder if we infer, like, if we made an inference on why Albania would only have 200 Jews. That's a good. I'm looking at these. This is intriguing to me. Looking at Northern Africa, what would cause somebody of Jewish heritage to go from Israel down into these mostly Arab countries rather than here into Europe? That's a question that comes up for me that I'm interested in. Okay, now here's what I want you to do. Everybody go to page 52. Go to page 52, please, in the digital notebook. 52. I'll give y'all 30 seconds to get there.
Peace be under you. Mind frame, you don't speak. Sup with you. Time change, front door always open. Come on in, certain rooms it's off limits if you trouble in. I can spot a user like computers. You ain't got no drive, you just wait for me to boot up. I keep hope alive, on my shoulders is my future. I'm coaching the team, got no players left to suit up.
All right, so here's my next question. Put in the chat. Put in the chat. What do you think life was like for the Jews prior to World War II? What do you think it was like? You're looking at this map. You had 3 million living in the Soviet Union, or which is modern day Russia. You had 3 million in Poland, 500,000 in Germany. You know, you have 400,000, 25% of the population Israel. Okay, what do you think life was like if you were a Jew in throughout the world at this time, or specifically in Germany at this time? Okay, you're one of the 500,000 Jews in Germany this time. Yeah, okay, I see chaotic, maybe normal. Anybody else? What do y'all think? What do y'all think? Yeah, I mean, there's some good options, right? I mean, who could have been normal, could have been crazy. Probably all right. Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so let's take a look and see. So everybody should be on page 52 in the digital notebook. Okay, 52. And if you're looking at it, you're going to see an organizer. Let me know if you have any issues with it in the chat. But if you should see in there an organizer with 3 questions related to these 3 stories. Okay, and these are very short clips, very short clips. Okay, so I want y'all to make sure that you are seeing these. I'm going to pull it up on another device as well, just so I can see and go along with you. Okay, on page, don't do 53. This is page 52. 53 is next. So the first question is from John Graham. Okay, how does he describe his feelings towards Germany before the war?
To be perfectly honest, I liked my country at the time. I was brought up the German way through my mother, and my father was not different. And I liked everything about it. If you went somewhere, you had to be somewhere at a certain time, whether it was 8 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. We were there on time. And there was no excuse. Overslept, underslept, whatever the case, meeting Chaim and Chevra or what have you, nothing of the sort. The same when I went to school. Punctuality, that was ingrained into the German way of life.
So again, y'all go ahead and answer that question. I think it was more at the beginning of that video. What did he think? Put it in the chat. What did he think about Germany? Yeah, organized, right? It's all about punctuality. You have to be on time. Okay, it's just part of the culture of Germany and you strict. Okay, yeah, strict. But let's listen again at that very beginning.
To be perfectly honest, I liked my country.
There you go, right? He liked the country. It was part of just what he knew before the war. Okay, let's continue to the next one. Okay, the question we're looking at here. According to his testimony, his father said they were German first and Jewish second. What does this lead you to believe about how many Jews might have identified with their country during this time period?
We lived in the center of Berlin. My parents were upper middle class. My father was a sales representative for a large textile mill. He earned a very nice living. We had a nice apartment. The ambience was cultured. We had music. I remember my parents dressing up in evening clothes and going to the opera. We had theater, and they would take us along. We were comfortable economically, at least before the National Socialist regime took over in Germany. I'm talking about the early years that I remember, in the early 1930s, before 1933. My father, in particular, was German first and Jewish second. Now, this does not mean that he was not an observant Jew. We were what was then called observant. In this country, in the USA, this can be translated into conservative. We observed all the holidays. We went to services Friday night and Saturday morning, if my father didn't have to work, he made sure that I went and my brother went. We both, my brother and I, sang in the synagogue choir. Usually the synagogues had boys' choirs. We celebrated all the holidays. My father never worked on the holidays. We were, without keeping a kosher home, yet we observed all the traditions.
All right, so what do y'all think? What do y'all think about the idea of being German first, Jewish second? And what does that tell you about life as a Jew in Germany prior to the Nazi regime, the Nationalist Socialist leadership? Okay, put it in the chat. Put in the chat. What do y'all think? What does this lead you to believe about how the Jews identified with their country? I mean, yeah, I see scary, but he's saying, like, before the war, before the Nazi regime really took control, did they have an issue with Germany? No. In fact, they identified almost as German citizens. They were German citizens, almost like they were German people. Okay? They were Jews living in Germany, and at this point, this, sounds like they were fairly wealthy, enjoying life. That's kind of what that gentleman's life was like as a family. All right, let's continue here. Last one on this page, Margaret Lambert. We'll take a listen here. And make sure you're answering those questions in those boxes, please, on page 52. Okay, do you need a little bit of time to type that in? You need a little bit of time to answer those first two questions? Let me know in the chat. Okay. All right, let's look at this last one here. The question is, what is your sense of what the relationship between Jews and non-Jews was like before the war? And hopefully you're picking up on this is just setting the stage for what Jewish life was like in Germany prior to the war.
I had a wonderful time. I had my mother and father, and I had an older brother, about 2 years older than I. And once we got over the sibling rivalry, we got to be very good friends, my brother and I. And my parents found out pretty soon that what Margaret wanted, Margaret got. And they let me be my own, because I was not the usual child. But I had my own way of dressing. I didn't like what my mother got for me. I wouldn't wear it. And I was strong-willed. And I knew what I wanted to do very early on in life. I wanted to be a coach, physical education teacher. My parents thought I was a little freaky with all this business about sports that I was so very into. I skated, I skied, I swam, I ran, I climbed. Through my sport activities, there were more non-Jewish people involved than Jewish people. I was the only girl in my class. I was the only Jew in my class, and it never made any difference. I mean, I never felt any anti-Semitism until a certain time. I always knew I was Jewish, but our house, there was no religion practiced, really. I always say, my father said, be a decent human being, that should be your religion, and I think I have practiced that, pretty much.
Yeah, put in the chat. What was her, if you look at that question, what was the relationship, sense of the relationship that she had between Jews and non-Jews? Yeah, I mean, there wasn't any difference, right? She's like, yeah, I was the only Jew in my class, but there was really no difference. We were all just students in there together. She never felt anti-Semitism, which we'll get to next. Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds, and then we're moving on to the next page, which is page 53, which you should have now. You may need to refresh your notebook, but everybody should have it now.
Put me in Hall of Fame, but off the wall, a flower grew. And in front of y'all. A power move. If you want some credit, now forget it. Ain't no water under bridges. I get wetted, I'm repellent. Shower proof, keep it clean until I can't. I take it there, never been, but confident. I make it there, harmful or you harmless. I keep calm until you are it. We aiming at each other, overcome it. I say two brothers walking through the world unprepared. One.
All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going here. So here's what I want you to do first. If you look at these instructions here, okay, so you can go to page 53 in your digital notebook. Anti-Semitism, 2 out of 3. We got one more page that we'll complete tomorrow in the digital notebook. Write down the definitions of anti-Semitism and stereotypes on page 53. Okay, here are the definitions. Okay, right here, and you should have a space in the top of your digital notebook for these definitions. So we have anti-Semitism. So when we talk about the word anti-Semitism, this is basically this hostility, hatred, negative views, and treatment of Jewish people. It's this anti-Jewish idea that we're going to look at and try to understand where it comes from, why it occurred, and so that's what so make sure you're writing that in that box, please, definition for anti-Semitism. Again, it's this hostility, prejudice, hatred, mistreatment of the Jewish people. And when we're talking about Jewish people, we're talking about kind of like the religious and the ethnic or heritage of the Jews that came out of Israel. If you look at Judaism, you know, from the Torah or the Bible, looking at Abraham and the descendants of Abraham, okay, that's what we're talking about from the Middle East. So we're talking about that ancient time and that group of people that originated from Abraham, okay? So you have Isaac and Ishmael. I don't know, you guys talked about this last year, right? With the 3 major religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and their similarities, and how the descendants of Isaac were the Jewish population, and the descendants of Ishmael are more of the Muslim or Arab population, okay? So we're talking about more the people that are descendants of Abraham and Isaac, okay? And then you have stereotype. Stereotype is widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. Basically saying, if we're applying it to this, that all Jews are like this, okay? That's a stereotype. All middle school girls are like this. All middle school boys are like this. Okay, it's given this fixed, simple image of a group of people that kind of puts them in this box. Okay, and often can be misleading, right? Any questions about anti-Semitism or stereotype? You can put them in the chat. All right. Let's move on then. Everybody should be, again, you're on page 53, anti-Semitism, 2 out of 3 here. Okay, so here's what I want you to do this time. We're going to get as far as we can to limit your asynchronous work today. Okay, so the first question here from this first video. Describe how this gentleman says that his friends have changed. Who does he believe is responsible for their change in attitude and behavior? Now, before this, again, life was great for this guy. They were going to shows, parents were getting dressed up in nice clothes, going to the opera, going to the theater. They were upper middle class. Life was good. And then we're going to describe how things changed with his friends.
It so happened that the best school in the neighborhood where we lived, in terms of academic work and also the most convenient, was a Catholic elementary school. Now, Catholic elementary schools were supported by the Catholic Diocese of Berlin, but they were not, as in this country, taught by nuns or brothers. They were lay teachers, and basically they had the same curriculum as the city schools, with the exception that after regular classes there was a class in catechism, and the Jewish kids in the school, and there were a dozen or so, were excused from that, and we could go home early. And we did. Now, this was about 1931 and 1932. In 1933, when the Nazis came to power, this started to change. because my classmates, who were my little friends, and we visited each other and played together and did our homework together, what have you, must have picked up new vibrations at home, because suddenly they called us dirty Jew, they called us other names. They would not play with us, they would not invite us. Some of their parents would telephone my parents and say, I hope you understand, but if my son plays with your son and his other friends will, yeah, etc. They knew what was going on. They made excuses, but it didn't stop. It was not an official policy of the school. The teachers were very fair. This was never permitted in class. There was never any reference in class to anything like that, unless the public schools, where the anti-Semitism had become suddenly very rampant.
So answer that question, please, right? So he's saying in the year 1933 is where there was a shift. And you can put your answer in the chat. But how did things change? What attitudes changed, in 1933? And who does he believe was responsible? Put in the chat so we can see what y'all think right now. We can help out those that are a little lost or need a little bit of support. Yeah, he's saying in 33 is when the Nazi regime took control. That's when the Reichstag and Hitler kind of gains that power as the chancellor and transitions to more of a dictator. And then all of a sudden, attitudes change. They don't play with, they start calling the Jews names, derogatory terms, and no longer play with them. Okay, and it's just kind of this shift right then in 1933. Okay, any questions? Y'all put them in the chat. Any questions? Your question still remains, right? Like, why? Why? That's always for me, and I think we're gonna still continue to try and unpack that. Now, here's what I want everybody to do. Your asynchronous work. We didn't get through everything today, and y'all, I've been thinking y'all really haven't had any asynchronous work from me lately. We've been getting it all done in class, but these videos are not long. But I want you to watch these two videos and answer those next two boxes on that organizer, and then the bottom. Everybody look at the bottom of the organizer as well. Okay? If you look at the bottom of the organizer, that question says evidence of anti-Semitism. Okay? And then give like their names of the people that said it. What are the examples of anti-Semitism that were present in these videos? And then evidence of stereotypes as well. So give those examples at the bottom that you heard from those videos. So answer the questions about the videos, the testimonial questions, but then give evidence of anti-Semitism and evidence of stereotypes in the bottom of the document. Any questions about that? Please let me know in the chat. All right, everybody go take it out the door, please. Take it out the door. Please, 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 100%. So we got to get 100%. Hey, be careful with the asynchronous. It's a little tricky. What's the objective? Unit. Statement of inquiry, which is really important today. Again, y'all, ideology impacts interactions. Don't get that wrong, please. Okay. The idea of anti-Semitism and how that, gosh, look at that, right? The idea of anti-Semitism and how it impacts the interactions of the kids playing with each other and no longer playing with each other. I mean, it directly impacts the interactions that these students have. This is the tricky one, y'all. Be careful. Be careful here. All right, so once you finish that, that's the last thing for the day.